Hey, tennis fans, you are listening to Match Point Canada, the official podcast of Tennis Canada. We're also members of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. Wimbledon qualifying already underway, Mike, as we have this conversation, and we have a big guest for this episode.
And we're following up from our guest last week. It's we're keeping it all in the family. It's Leylah Annie Fernandez, who's following in the footsteps of younger sister Bianca Jolie Fernandez, who was kind enough to stop by last week. And it's fun because we had the two of them on once upon a time together on the podcast, and here we have them back to back in successive weeks separately. And I think really when you listen to this episode, for those who listened last week, you'll quickly note the differences between them. But one thing that's a constant is the fact that they're very tight, they're very close to each other, and they've definitely got each other's backs.
Yeah, 100%. And Leylah's always been so generous with her time speaking with us. It's great to have that rapport that she knows us. Obviously, Bianca Jolie, and a number of the Canadians know us on a personal level, it makes it more meaningful when you speak to them. And, as we were having that conversation, it was just after her first round win at the Birmingham Classic. She would go on to have a good tournament, but let's dive in. Here's our conversation with former U.S. Open finalist Canadian Leylah Annie Fernandez. You are listening to Matchpoint Canada, the official podcast of Tennis Canada, and so happy to be joined by former U.S. Open finalist Leylah Annie Fernandez, who comes back on the podcast. Leylah, great to see you again.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be back on the podcast.
Well, thank you to be back. I don't know how many years we've been having these annual chats with you, but I think it's a continuation of your already record-setting appearances on Matchpoint Canada. So it's great to see you again. And now you're back on the grass courts. And how would you describe your relationship with grass? I mean, it seems to me like it's probably the trickiest surface for pros to acclimatize to. Is it something you feel more comfortable with the more years you play on it?
I think at the moment we're on the talking stage. I haven't had many tournaments on grass, many years on grass either, so we're still on that talking stage, but I'm just happy with my performance today, with the way that I was able to kind of execute my game. And so far I'm enjoying my time there, and that's the only thing that we can ask for, is just enjoy ourselves on grass, because it is so tricky.
And great straight sets win over Sarah Saribe's Tormo. Transitioning from the clay, and I felt like you had a good clay court season. What are maybe some of the biggest elements of your game that you think work on the grass court surface, and what are maybe the things you kind of have to adapt to a little bit on the fly?
Um, I think the transition from clay to grass, the difficulty is the footwork. Uh, on clay, you get to slide a lot more. The balls are a little bit slower, so you do have time to set up. Whereas on grass, you have no time at all. The ball skids off the ground and is extremely low. So, I think that's the trickiest part. But what I do think, like, elements from my game that helps me a lot, is that I do have like fast twitch muscles. That's so like my coaches keep telling me, and that helps me. So I think that has made the transition a little bit easier. But I think for us, the most important thing in the grass court season is the fundamentals, and just keep working on the footwork and just keep getting faster and more comfortable with the grass.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode of Matchpoint Canada. If you'd like to follow along every week, give us a like below, hit the subscribe button, as we're trying to make 15,000 subs. Check out the first episode of Tennis Nation, recapping Canada's historic Davis Cup win from 2022.
We spoke with your sister yesterday for this week's episode of Matchpoint Canada. So it was great to have Bianca Jolie on the podcast. And she mentioned that she's coming over to spend some time with you in Europe, with you and your dad, and just how excited she was to be reunited with you again. Well, what does it mean for you to have her over there with you for a stretch of the season? And also, how closely have you been following her first season of NCAA tennis?
Yeah, I'm just super happy with my sister coming here to Europe. I know she's back home at the moment, spending time with my older sister, my aunt, and also my mom. So, it's great that she has a couple of days before she travels to Europe. I know the first day my sister and I we will chat like maybe morning till midnight and anything and about everything. So we'll see about that. But I think the most important for her is actually training. She's coming here to not only catch up with my dad and I, but also train. She does have a couple more tournaments during the summer for her, and hopefully it all goes well. Hopefully she feels confident and she plays matches with belief and just going out there with full of confidence. So I think for me is trying to set a good example for her, and hopefully she can use me as an example, or if she needs any advice I can give her. But as I said, like in the past, she has given me more advice than I can count, and that has helped me tremendously.
One thing that's been really cool that I've noticed for you this year, I feel like you're being super interactive on Instagram, like really using the platform, doing fun IG lives, some cooking. How much fun has it been for you to engage with your fans on that platform even more? And maybe how do you kind of focus on the positive side of that and block out any of the negatives that do sometimes come with social media?
Yeah, a little bit last year, end of last year, my my team and I we were talking like how can we connect a little bit more with the fans. It's great that I get to do some meet and greets at tournaments, but sometimes there's fans all around the world that are watching my matches at like middle of the night, 2 a.m. So like how can I connect with them a little bit more? And my dad actually came up with the idea of Instagram Live. Like, how about you do more Instagram Lives, like so that they can get to know you, you get to interact with them, and it's a win-win situation. And I think that has helped me too in disconnecting in a way, like kind of put things into perspective. Sometimes like after matches, win or loss, I'm too hard on myself, and I get into like that downward spiral instead of just looking at the positive side and working on my weaknesses. So I think the Instagram Live has helped me into disconnect and then kind of have a different perspective. Some of the questions I get is that how do you feel? How are you playing? It looks like you're playing really well. So that has helped me a lot. And to be honest, a lot of the fans that join, they're super positive. Not I haven't read any negative comments, or if they were, I probably have missed it, but they were super positive, and that warms my heart. That motivates me to do better, because I always, as I said before, I'm not like just playing for myself, but I'm playing for the fans that, as I said, watch my matches at 2 a.m., that stay in the stadium, like through the rain delays, through everything. So for me, it just means a lot. And, hopefully we can do more Instagram lives. We can come up with more ideas, not only about cooking or about the post-match, like press conferences, but, also like maybe when when I go out to the mall, like on my day off, I can like show them what I actually do instead of just telling them in conferences. Yeah.
I think it's nice for fans to see that side of players as well. And it's nice to hear you talk about some benefits and positives of social media interactions as well, because we know sometimes there's obviously another element to it as well. I remember during the pandemic, Naomi Osaka and her sister did some sort of combination lives on Instagram. Just to throw out an idea, maybe you and Bianca Jolie do a Fernandez sisters live at some point. I bet you that would be popular. But I'll let you,
Yeah.
take that under consideration. What's something aside from the tennis, personality you have and how fierce a competitor you are in the court that your fans wouldn't know about you in terms of other interests and hobbies away from the sport?
Um, I think that I can be a lazy person, the most laziest person out there. I can actually spend morning till evening sitting in front of the TV and just watch movies or shows. So it's like I
I
don't
find
think a
that
lot
hard
of
to
people
believe, I have
know
to
that.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know, like so like for me, like when I watch like my matches, I see like I'm so energetic, and I thought, wow, that's like a whole different side that not many people know, that I actually enjoy staying home and I enjoy like sitting on the couch and do nothing. But I think another thing I don't think many people know is that I've recently picked up crocheting a little bit last year. So I started with that. I've been enjoying crocheting on my downtime. Or I think during rain delays, I try to keep it simple, play card games with my team, and just enjoy their personality and vibes.
This is a big year this summer, obviously sports wise, because Summer Olympics are coming, and just want to get your thoughts on the opportunity to represent Canada at the Olympics for tennis. Is that something you're all in on, and how much are you kind of prioritizing that event in Paris this summer?
Yeah, it's as I've said like many, many times in the past, representing your country is like the highest honor out there. And hopefully I get the call that I get to represent Canada at the Olympics. It comes every 4 years. So for me, it's going to be one of the biggest tournaments out there. And hopefully, if I do play, it'll be a great tournament, and I'll be able to bring back a medal back to Canada.
Is that something, Leylah Annie, where you would also be interested if the opportunity presented itself to play some doubles aside from singles?
Oh, 100%. I've talked about this with my team that I not only just want to play singles, but I want to play doubles, and hopefully mixed double is there, but we'll have to see what the federation and what the team decides, and hopefully the opportunity presents itself.
And I think we're going to finish with some fun rapid fire questions to wrap up. I know we did the same with Bianca Jolie.
And you're getting the exact same questions that your sister got.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now I have to listen to the podcast because I want to see if we have the same answers.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, she does mention you in a couple of her answers. I'll leave it at that. The rest you'll have to figure out for yourself.
Okay.
But okay, here we go. First one, and me and Ben will trade off here. So, what's your favorite shot to hit on a tennis court?
Drop shot.
Nice. Favorite surface to play on?
Hard court.
Do you prefer day matches or night matches?
Oof, that's tough. Night matches.
What is your least favorite training drill?
It would have to be the consistency drill. It would have to be hitting 100 balls in a row without missing.
What is a pet peeve of something an opponent does on the court? Something like an annoying habit or something that gets under your skin when you're out there?
I think long grunts. Like, I don't mind that they grunt, but when it's like super long, that it extends after they hit.
Yeah. Favorite food to eat?
Ooh, lasagna.
What toppings do you put on your pizza or order on your pizza?
It would either be pepperoni and cheese or cheese.
Okay.
Your favorite tennis player growing up?
Favorite tennis player growing up? I got a couple. So I love Serena, Justine Henin. I also love Roger Federer, Nadal, Djokovic. That's kind of
long list
topics. So yeah.
What's your favorite slam?
The first one that I win, that'll be my favorite slam.
Nice. Like it.
Last one for you. What's the thing you miss most about living in Canada?
I miss poutine. I that's what I miss most about living in Canada.
Great answers. Thank you. You did great. None of the answers were the same as your sister.
That's true.
So there you go. So that's all right. But she did mention that she likes pepperoni and ham on her pizza, and after that, she lets you order the other toppings. So
yeah, I always order extra cheese because I like the cheese. So she always ordered the pepperoni and ham, and I would take the ham off and give it to her. So that's how we do it.
Nice.
Well, look, it's been great having the two of you back to back. I think it's the first time we've had siblings as back-to-back guests on the podcast, and wonderful to chat with both of you. Great to have you back again, and have a great summer. All the best at the Olympics, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you at the National Bank Open in Toronto later this summer.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It's great chatting with you, and hopefully you guys will get Bianca Jolie and Leylah Annie at the same time.
Okay, yeah, we'd love to have that
That's
again.
the hope.
Thanks, Leylah.
Thank you. Bye.
And there you have it, our chat with Leylah Annie Fernandez, who, she hasn't had as much success on the grass court surface compared to obviously the hard courts and the clay. But I also feel like that's been a lack of reps. And this tournament, which just wrapped up in Birmingham this past week, I think was kind of an important stepping stone for her, making her first ever quarterfinal at a grass court tournament.
And I think if you polled professional tennis players, they would overwhelmingly admit that grass is probably the trickiest surface to learn on. And it makes sense. I mean, it's not one that most people grow up playing on. We know here in Canada, I think there's only four grass courts or four grass court clubs in the entire country of Canada. So it's something that, you establish yourself on clay and hard court, and then later it gets thrown in almost as like like a circus act kind of thing. And so it makes sense that it's going to take a while to acclimatize to. But she spoke openly about the relationship with grass court tennis, which is one where they're still in the talking phase, which I thought was kind of endearing of her to say that way. But she's enjoying the learning curve, although admitting that it is tricky. And I like the honesty that's there. And look, unless you're someone who's coming around like a Pete Sampras or a Martina Navratilova, unless you've got that big serve or you've got that incredible touch at net, I think it is something that's going to take a while to get used to.
Yeah, definitely. And look, if we talk a little bit about Leylah in terms of career path, I think she's really on the up and up again. If we look at where she did have, understandably, a few struggles in stages in 2023, we saw her ranking, dip probably outside the top 75, struggles with a little bit of form, injuries here and there. But she's been trending on a positive note, I think, for much of this season. And to make a quarterfinal here, she's firmly back inside the top 30. She's going to be seated at Wimbledon, which is really important. And if we talk about her tournament in general, I mean, when we spoke to her, she had a very easy win against Sorribes Tormo, but she rallied in 3 sets past Golubic, the nice Swiss player, and then a tough 3-set loss to Ayla Tomljanovic, someone who's also really dealt with a lot of injuries, but is a two-time Wimbledon quarterfinalist, so has just a bit more experience on the grass. But for me, I think Leylah is right there. And as we have this conversation, she opened with a win today. She's playing another tournament at Eastbourne and opened with a win over another experienced player in Krejcikova.
Yeah, and she gets a qualifier next, and it might be Golubic again, which could work to her favor. And then she was in the section of the draw with Elena Rybakina, who's since withdrawn from Eastbourne, already at Wimbledon prepping, and might get, I think, lucky loser was Sofia Kenin, who lost in qualies to Golubic like 6-love, 6-1. So
Wow.
I think this is a nice opportunity for Leylah to kind of get that confidence, get a few more matches under her belt ahead of Wimbledon, where I believe she's the 30th seed, if I recall correctly. And that gives her at least a couple rounds at Wimbledon to get it used to it over there before she has to play another seeded player. And I think Leylah could be one of those players that we talk about dark horses. We mentioned it last week with Milos Raonic, who unfortunately, and we'll get to this, won't be at Wimbledon this year. But I think Leylah Annie could be one of those players as well this year at the All England Club.
Yeah, absolutely. And Yulia Putintseva, also a former guest on Matchpoint Canada a few years ago, going on to win that title in Birmingham. If we continue on with some Canadian women's tennis, I think I talked about just the past week how I felt like grass should be, if not Rebecca Marino's best surface, certainly one of her best, maybe just behind indoor hard. And wow, she really had a statement winning a 100K ITF event, cruising through and then capturing that title in 3 sets. And suddenly I feel like she's heading back towards the top 100. And I would say, she's in qualifying at the All England Club, but definitely with that big booming serve and forehand, it's such a deadly combination on the grass that she'll have a great opportunity, I think, to make the main draw.
Yeah, you called it last week, and I think we all kind of concur when we think about the strengths of her game, and grass is a surface that she's perfectly sort of, paired to have success on. And, 100K ITF title is up there almost to me, like a little bit below a 250, obviously, but
Yeah.
it's the highest ITF level that you can get to. So
Hmm.
confidence moving forward. I think she belongs in the top 100. It's kind of surprising to me that she's dipped down a little bit, over the last year, perhaps. But yeah, I think at Wimbledon, again, a player that not like a seeded player, obviously, but someone that you're not going to want to see your name line up too early in the tournament when you want to hopefully have kind of an easygoing kind of match. Rebecca Marino is not an easygoing match on grass, that's for sure.
No, definitely not. And if we shift over to action on the men's side, Milos Raonic, obviously, we noted that record-setting performance what a performance it was at Queen's Club. 47 aces, most all time in a best of three match, and a tough 3-set win over a strong player in Cam Norrie before falling to Taylor Fritz in the next round. It's hard to maybe put together so many memories with little time left now for Milos seemingly in his career, but I think that's a match that's going to stand out to him when he looks back on it all.
I think it's incredible that he just set an all-time tennis record, considering how much time he's been away from the tour. And you think of all the years that he played in better health, or years that he played where he had more reps, behind him. And it's now at this stage of his career, when he's 33, when he's barely played for the last few years, that he sets it. It just shows what he's capable of doing when he's clicking. And not surprising, perhaps there was a bit of a, dial down in the next match where you only served 9 aces and actually got out-aced by Taylor Fritz, but probably the shoulder. I mean, look, if you're going to serve 47 aces, you're
Oh
going
my
to be
God.
feeling that the next day, I would imagine, right? So it's nice to see. It was such a positive, and to me, then it's kind of a letdown that he's not been given a wild card to Wimbledon. And this is what he told us the last time he was on, really, that he was hoping to play Wimbledon. If he needed to, he said he was going to do qualies. That clearly changed. I think part of him felt a little bit, I think understandably, disappointed that they wouldn't give a former finalist there a wild card and instead gave all 8 singles men's wild card to local Great Britain, like British players.
Yeah.
Whereas on the women's side, 4 of them went to non-British players. So definitely a disparity there between the men and the women, with Kerber, Osaka, Wozniacki, and I'm forgetting the other non-Brit who got a wild card. But you would think if they're going to do that for some of those players, especially ones like Wozniacki, who haven't gone perhaps as deep at Wimbledon as Milos has, why wouldn't they give him one? So he's not going to play qualies, and maybe he just knew too many, matches in a short period of time for his shoulder and other body parts to, be able to sustain. I did speak with him just the other day, and he said he's now going back to the clay, and he's hoping that he's going to be on the Canadian Olympic team, which hasn't been confirmed, but you think if he's going to go and train on it, there must be some reason for that. The Canadian Olympic announcement coming in the next week or so. And it'd be great to see Milos there. And if he can't play at Wimbledon, at least I guess the silver lining is you can have one last crack at an Olympic Games. And even though clay's not his best surface, it'd be nice for him to come back and get that one last experience representing his country there.
Yeah, I'm honestly stunned, and I just think it's such a head-scratching decision by the All England Club to not give him this opportunity, and it follows suit with what happened at Roland Garros. Dominic Thiem, who we know he's at the tail end of his career playing his final season, and a two-time French Open finalist, not getting a wild card from the French Tennis Federation to the main draw there. That was so disappointing. Milos Raonic, as you said, former Wimbledon finalist. And that was such a key moment in Canadian tennis history when he reached that final. So I think it's a real shame. Like I don't know the criteria specifically, but as you outlined on the
Well, it
women's
seems like you
side,
have to be British, right? Like if on the men's side, it
well,
seems like you got to be a Brit. Yeah.
evidently, but as you highlighted, some of the names on the women's side, and as you were naming them off, I was thinking, well, yeah, give Osaka a wild card, give Kerber a wild card. Well, these are great former Grand Slam champions. So that completely makes sense. And there are only so many players who've not only won Wimbledon, only so many players who've made it to a final. So I think it's a major disappointment for him not to get that final shot at Wimbledon. I know maybe last year when he did play, it was in the back of his mind, maybe I won't get the chance to play here again. But very sad that he can't do that one more time. Who knows what's in store next
Well,
year? You never
that's it.
know.
And I mean, here's what I hope. I mean, he's ranked just almost in the top 150 now, which is pretty impressive considering how
Yeah.
little he's actually played over the
Mhm.
last year since he came back. I hope he gets that ranking up. I hope he stays healthy. I hope at the end of 2024 he says, you know what? I'm going to come back and I'm going to play one last time at Wimbledon, and
Sure.
I'm going to show them, the mistake that they made, and I'm going to
Yeah.
bring my 47 plus aces and my big serve, and I'm going to have one last run there. And nothing would make me happier than to see that be the way that Milos closes things out.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. And look, I was circling his name honestly before this news came out of a guy like, oh, I could see Milos making the round of 16. The way he's serving, the way he plays on that surface, best
For
three of
sure.
five format, I think is if his body's holding up, he almost becomes that much more difficult. So that's unfortunate, but fingers crossed. We'll see when the Team Canada announcement comes about the Paris Olympics if he gets on that roster. Felix Auger-Aliassime, I had certainly, I think, high hopes based on the clay court season that he could do some damage on the grass courts. Now my concern level is at least moderate that he plays in Halle and can't get through one match. He had to retire without completing that first rounder against, I believe it was Dominic Kepfer, the German.
Piffer.
So 6-4, yeah, 6-4, 4-3 in a walkover. And now you have to wonder, is he going to be healthy, ready, and fit for Wimbledon? Because he's not getting another tune-up here.
Yeah, well, I was feeling the same way as you. And then, some players, if they feel anything before a tournament of this magnitude, they're going to shut it down and be careful. And we all know about a year ago that Felix was carrying injuries from the clay court season through the grass season, and he never really got fully healthy during that stretch. And I think it kind of, threw off the rest of his season, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The positive news, as I was just kind of looking before we recorded here, is he is playing an exhibition tournament, the Boodles, which
Okay.
I think is like an EXO with some pretty big names. And he's playing against Stefanos Tsitsipas on Wednesday around 4 p.m. Eastern time. So if he's going to go and play that and put his name into that, to me, it says whatever he was feeling must be, feeling better now.
Yep.
And he still wants a little bit of a tune up on the grass before Wimbledon. So I think we can take a deep breath and say, that bodes well for his chances heading into Wimbledon as our highest seeded player, either male or female.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of Halle a little bit, and look, when Jannik Sinner claimed that world number one ranking, there were a couple of pundits, not most, a couple who were
Not me, not
suggesting,
you.
not
Yeah.
me, not you, Mats Wilander, who look, I love Wilander, and he had a great career, but he suggested Jannik Sinner is really only the world number one numerical ranking based on the computer, and sort of alluded to the fact that Carlos Alcaraz is your number one player. I mean, that's a topic, I suppose, if you want to debate, go ahead. But Jannik Sinner, to me, has still been the best player of 2024 consistently since the very beginning of the season. And he's won titles now on the grass, on the hard courts. I was about to say clay, but he has won a title on clay.
But he's getting better on clay,
He's
right?
getting
Like
much
he's
better
definitely
on
a
clay.
threat.
Exactly. He went deep at the French Open, and now winning in Halle, beating Hubert Hurkacz, who's a great grass court player, in straight sets in the finals. I think Sinner is an all surface threat, and I think back to just a couple of years ago when he was up 2-0 on Novak on the grass, and Djokovic, of course, pulled off one of his stunning rallies to come from behind. But there's no reason to think Sinner is a strong contender to win at the All England Club with his game.
Yeah, listen, the rankings to me are the rankings, and you can't argue with it. And anyone who's watched Sinner play over the last year knows that he's very deserving of being there. And yeah, sure, Carlos Alcaraz, also a tremendous player. I think the two of them are going to trade off that number one ranking. I think they're going to be fighting for the biggest titles in the sport on all surfaces, which is great. And you want to see a number one who can compete on all surfaces. I think that's important. And Sinner definitely can do it. It's not like he's winning a bunch of 500 level tournaments, Australian Open. He had a good clay court season. Now he's showing he can do it on the grass as well. I don't think you can take anything away from this guy. And I'm super excited just to see, how he transitions now to Wimbledon, what he can do there. How is, Alcaraz going to, there's just so much there. But those two guys, to me, whoever holds that number one ranking is deserving in that moment of that number one ranking.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do want to offer a brief Novak Djokovic update before we carry on and soon wrap up. He did say in regards to the grass, and he's traveled to the All England Club, I didn't come here to play a few rounds. I know if I can play close to my maximum or at my maximum, then I will play. If not, then I'll give somebody else a chance to play. So his status still up in the air. But I think that kind of tells you how the big three are sort of built, and have always been built that way. If Novak feels like he can fight for the title, he's going to play. I think if he's feeling like the knee is a little iffy, he can't sort of push off of it, maybe we won't see him at the All England Club. So it's very up in the air.
But we want to see him there, right?
I
Like you
agree.
want to see the best players there.
Absolutely.
And look, he's a year removed from an incredible season, one of his best seasons ever, one of the best seasons ever all time, I would say.
Yeah.
And yeah, this year it hasn't clicked completely for him, but Wimbledon is a place where I think he could get right back on track, and that's also part of the reason he's there. The history he's had there, the numerous titles he's had there, the history that he wants to add to his legacy. I don't think he'll jeopardize his hardcourt season. I don't think he'll jeopardize, his ability to play at the Olympics.
Yeah.
But that being said, yeah, if he feels good, then, and I sure hope he is, because the tournament will be that much stronger and compelling with his name in the draw.
And obviously, one other legend we really want to see at Wimbledon, also currently up in the air, Andy Murray, who has not officially withdrawn. He did undergo an operation for a spinal cyst. Obviously, he's been battling, beyond the hip surgeries, injuries here and there over the past couple of years. His body only allows him to do so much. But I think, this is definitely the last and final chance for Andy to get out there and say goodbye at the All England Club. I really hope he gets the opportunity.
What do you think though? Like if he can't play this year, do you think maybe he'll just say
I don't think
try
so.
again? You think this is it?
I sadly don't think so because he was dealing with those retirement rumors for a long time and then finally said I think I'm done after the summer. So I kind of think this is it. Not to say Wimbledon is necessarily his final tournament of his career, but I think this year is it. And I think this is a different circumstance than Novak, who says he's not going to play unless he feels like he can compete for the title. I think if Andy Murray feels like he can survive out there, he'll try and give it a go.
Yeah, what more does this guy have to give to the sport? And my goodness, has he ever given so much to tennis, British tennis? And when I was growing up, it was Tim Hedman, and Hedman gave
Yeah.
him a lot to cheer about. 4 Wimbledon quarterfinals, 4 Wimbledon semifinals. Unfortunately, never could quite get beyond that stage. Murray took it to the next level. And now it seems like with Jack Draper, hey, maybe here's another young British player who can one day take that torch from Andy Murray and give them something to talk about too. Big win for him over Alcaraz this past week. Um, yeah, it'd be great if Murray could walk off at Wimbledon, but wherever he does leave tennis, that'll be a place where, the tennis world should absolutely give him plenty of credit for making not just a big three, but a big four for a number of years there.
Well said. And yeah, as you mentioned, Jack Draper, I'd love to see Great Britain evolve here and get stronger in the game, both men's and women's side. Obviously, Emma Raducanu being the U.S. Open champion, but we want to see her ranking back up. And Jack Draper, he's been a strong prospect for some time. So for it to really come together over these past couple of weeks, a huge title in Stuttgart, and then backing that up to reach the quarters of Queen's Club, which is a very good result. But notably, beating Carlos Alcaraz there in straight sets is a huge win. Kudos to Tommy Paul for his first career title on the grass. He got it done there, and he'll be, I think, probably the top American threat. As we sort of wrap up, and we are going to have one more interview in this episode. I had a chance to speak with Melissa Lacroix, who runs our prospect camps and development with Tennis Canada. Olympic side of things for the Americans, few huge names have said they're not going to play, which, Ben Shelton will not be competing at the Olympics for the United States, Sebastian Corda and Francis Tiafoe. You
Yeah, and if you look at
surprised?
some of those players, I mean, for me, Tiafoe kind of surprising because he is a little bit older than the others that you mentioned, but
Yeah.
Korda and especially Shelton, I mean, those guys are going to have ample opportunity moving forward to play in other Olympic games. And I know it only comes around every 4 years. Most players, if they're lucky, will get a crack at 2, maybe 3 Olympic games if they're really fortunate. But I think those two players will definitely have a shot. And for Tiafoe, given how things have kind of been, you got to look at the rankings. You want to stay at the top of the game. You want to keep a seated spot, especially heading into the US Open, which for those American players over a clay court tournament at the Olympics is going to be their bigger chance of succeeding in New York. I totally get it. So it doesn't totally shock me.
Yeah, and I said it last week. I think the surface change is playing such a huge role in those decisions. And Arena Sabalenka Onstrouper also withdrawing from the Olympics on the women's side. Guys, we will wrap up. I had a chance to speak with Melissa Lacroix, coaching head prospect coach for prospect camps for Tennis Canada. So here is my conversation with Melissa. You are listening to Match Point Canada, the official podcast of Tennis Canada. Well, between success in Billie Jean King and Davis Cup Junior events, various international titles worldwide, Canada is one of the leading tennis nations, also amongst our junior athletes. And recently, our U15 prospect team took part in 3 separate development camps hosted by Tennis Canada in Halifax, Toronto, and Montreal. And here to join me this week, she's the senior manager of high performance with Tennis Canada, Mel Lacroix. Mel, thanks so much for joining Matchpoint Canada.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, I'm excited to ask a little bit about your role, obviously, in high performance with Tennis Canada. Did you grow up a tennis player, and how did you eventually transition into this role with TC?
Yeah, I grew up a tennis fan, but I
Hmm.
tried to play a little bit, but no, my background was in hockey. So I grew up playing hockey at a high performance level. And then, I came into tennis about a year ago. But before that, I was working in the sports science side of things across many different Olympic and Paralympic sports.
I think we've seen these sports science things just in sport it evolve incredibly over the last 10 to 20 years, and now we're seeing it amongst our junior athletes. Maybe how do you use your role in sports science to help some of our juniors, for example, with our U15 prospect team, which obviously has so many talented young players?
Yeah, sports science has obviously become a big part of high performance sport at all levels. It's something that, we're between technology and, new ways and being innovative is the new way of doing things. And of course, it's going to get the players to the next level. So for us, with the development team, with our prospect team and the camps, one of the things we're trying to bring in is just a bit more of an objective approach to, you know, assessing the athletes and helping them get to that next level. So where are they really strong? Where are some weaknesses? So really just trying to use more objective ways of, whether it be looking at different types of fitness testing or doing some analysis on different technical skills like serve or footwork and things like that. So just to give a bit more feedback to the players and their personal coaches, we only see some of these players a couple times throughout the year at these camps or at different tournaments. So to be able to just use some of the things that we have access to with a lot of our experts and coaches, and to be able to use that and provide it back to the personal coaches and families to help the players, continue to work on those things.
And obviously, we just had 69 athletes, boys and girls, taking part in 3 separate camps in Halifax, Toronto, and Montreal. How was the success of these camps, and how do you feel about maybe the development of these athletes?
Yeah, it was great. The first camp we were able to do in Halifax, it was the older group of the players. So what we call the 2014 players, or sorry, the 14-year-olds of the group. So the 2010s. So they were the real goal of that camp there was, we went to Halifax. There was an ITF tournament attached to that camp. So we did a few days of training at the ACE Center there, the tennis center at the Athletic Tennis Center. So we were able to do a few days of training with the players to really help them get prepared for the tournament. So part of that, their stage of development where they're at now is they are getting to that next level of, competing, traveling a lot more. And so what we did was we brought in different experts in terms of nutritionists, mental performance coaches to help them to get prepared for what they need to do, what should they be eating, and how to prepare in terms of their habits before and during competition. And then the same thing on court with the coaches. They really help them just hone in on some of their tactical decision making and things like that going into the tournament. So that one was a really a great success in terms of, we had athletes playing their first ITF tournament. And so being able to go in, play their first, some of their first matches in those tournaments, and some of them having some really good results there as well. And then the next 2 camps were in Toronto and Montreal with the younger group, the 11 to 13-year-olds. So they're in that like stage 3 of our whole player development pathway, which really is still in that development phase. So for us, it's really about, fueling their passion for loving the sport and really developing some of their really good techniques, whether it be, within their fitness and physical abilities, but then also on court with some of their different technique as well. So yeah, I think just the progress that the kids have made from the first camps, we even saw them early in the year. So we did the camps twice a year, so early in October, and then this was our second round of the camps, and just being able to see some of the progress in the athletes from some of the different fitness testing, and then on court, the coaches. It's been great to see, and I think it shows that having these programs is really helping with the development of the players.
And it must be a big process. Obviously, it's such a great opportunity for these kids to take part in these camps. Are you also helping in the process of maybe recruitment and selection? How does that work to decide which juniors are getting this opportunity?
Yeah, so this past year, what we did was, again, trying to take a bit more of an objective approach to selecting players, but knowing it's still a very subjective process. So we came up with a bit of a selection guide, and what the coaches did. So there was a group or a committee of coaches who watched the players at our outdoor nationals, which happened in August in Montreal. So last year, and again this upcoming year, that's what the first touch point where we see the players really play is at those nationals. So we have a bit of a guide looking at a weighing scale with results, but also what we're seeing on court. So yeah, we're looking at their tactical, their technical abilities, but we're also looking at their mental ability. So are they trying hard? Are they giving a good effort? What's their competitive level? Managing their emotions, all those pieces come into play, and then their physical. So just their ability to be their physical ability on court, their quickness, all the pieces that come into tennis. But just seeing all around, we want to see that athleticism in them early on. So we're looking at all those pieces, and then we're relying on the coaches we know at the different provinces as well to provide us with some information and things like that for the players and recommendations. But that's kind of our first touch point. And then our second, throughout the year, we know there's some younger players who might not make the outdoor nationals because of their age or different different reasons or opportunities. So then the indoor nationals later in the year is that second opportunity for us to have another look.
Oh, that's awesome. And I think in this country, I mean, we've talked about it a lot the past decade or so, just development of tennis at a grassroots level. And we see more and more success on a professional scale, especially over the past 5-10 years. Davis Cup titles, Billie Jean King Cup titles, Bianca winning the US Open. What is maybe, I mean, from your impressions, what is maybe a key ingredient here in how we're developing some of these young players to potentially go on and have successful pro careers?
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, all those big wins is inspiration for the kids. I think at this point for the kids to see that it is possible for Canadians to be on that big stage, and there is a next step for them if they do want to continue to compete at the highest level. And so first, I think that inspiration is huge. Seeing we've been able to bring in some of those players, past, present, to the camps to speak to the kids, and that goes a long way for them to see that it's reachable for them and that they have access to them as well. So that is huge, obviously. And then the next piece to it is we're trying to build players here that have what we call in our Canadian way of like being gritty. So being, have that passion in them to, be competitive, to work hard, to be intentional with, the work that they're doing. But just being really strong competitors and being gritty. And that's what we're trying to build, but also just players who are have a lot of pride to be Canadian, to play for Canada on that stage. And I think that's why we see how well we do at the Davis Cup, the Billie Jean King Cup, is that pride is there for our players and want to continue to build that.
You're from a hockey background, so
Yeah.
I feel like some of that competitive firepower, like I always see that in hockey players, and so I'm sure you're helping a lot to impart that on our juniors to carry it on the tennis court as well.
Yeah, of course.
We love it. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was just saying the hockey world, obviously it's like you said, it's competitive, but we're trying to bring some of that team aspect to these camps and with the kids too, to it's an individual sport, but there's a big team aspect to it as well. So that's been really fun to be able to bring some of that as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing about our prospect camps, Mel, and thanks for the work you do with Tennis Canada. It's always great to see the next generation growing and having success, and I'm sure we'll see a few of these faces in the years to come, probably on the pro circuit.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ben.
Guys, that's all for us at Matchpoint Canada. Mike, we're going to be back next week for a full preview episode.
More grass court news coming, Wimbledon, all the draws, analysis, who we think are the favorites, the dark horses. Can't wait to do it. Favorite tournament of the year for me, aside from the National Bank Open, of course, but favorite slam. So yeah, look forward to that, Ben.
100%. Guys, we will talk to you next time.